shows Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. With me today, I've got Rachel, Amanda, and Nick. Please, Rachel, introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, as you said, my name is Rachel G, and I am a speaker, a coach, and a teacher. My area of expertise is about helping people who are going through a painful transition, be that from a relationship, a career, a family member, but they're ready to nourish a whole and emotionally balanced life that they love. And they do that through actually getting to know themselves on a much deeper level. And as a result of working with me, they really start to feel first, think second, and act third. They develop unconditional self-acceptance, and they manifest more joy into their life, which we do all of that through embracing all of our emotions, nurturing inner balance, and really aligning with their authentic expression. So I'll leave it at that as my quick introduction. Nick.
Amanda, please.
Someone? Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick, and as Rachel was introducing herself, I couldn't help but think how applicable some of that advice that Rachel gives to her clients would be for me, as I'm going through some major life changes at the moment. I just left the only career that I ever knew, which was policing, after, well, my entire adult life, so 23 years. And I'm starting my own fashion brand here in Canada, which is all natural fibers and locally made, and is just my passion. So going all in on what actually makes me happy rather than serving other people, basically. So choosing myself for basically the first time in my life. So I appreciate all that advice that Rachel gives to other people and to myself here. So that's a little bit about me.
My name's Amanda. I am a teacher, an author, and an illustrator, and I love helping people find their own unique creative gifts, because I believe we are all creative and we all have something to give to the world. And even if you're not creative in the traditional sense, you definitely have creativity locked within you somewhere that I believe that you can get out to the world. And once you do, you will feel so much more at ease. Grant?
Thank you. Hi, this is Grant Morrell, international speaker, coach, trainer, and international best-selling author. And over the past 19 years, myself and my international team have helped thousands of entrepreneurs from across 15 countries. We've helped them to increase their profits by up to 200% in just a few short months, by working with the team, the systems, their mindset, and their strategy to help them live a life of passion, purpose, freedom, and to create a business and a lifestyle that becomes a legacy for generations to come. And these days, I have a vision. I'm building a global movement to take 1 million leaders to live life without limits by helping them to clearly communicate their message with the world. Over to you, Nomsa.
Thank you so much, Grant. So our topic today is Sing the Strength in Yourself. So I'm going to let Amanda, because Amanda, you chose this topic. Would you like to explain to our audience why you chose this topic and explain a little bit about the topic?
Yeah, I chose this topic because I think so often we look at others and we're like, wow, look at what they've done. And we do. And then we also are like our best worst critic. And so that little bit of like empathy for yourself. And so I think that it was a really important topic to bring up, because so often when you're trying to get past things, you'll go back into your negative self-talk on a regular basis. And so if you can get out of your negative self-talk and give yourself some empathy, then you'll just be able to get that much further, because so much of what keeps us stuck is our own selves. And so that's why I picked the topic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. Anyone that wants to comment? Rachel?
Yeah, so the reason why I loved this subject because I felt that it really was a continuation from the topic on Monday about, the importance of getting to know and love yourself, because that inner strength comes from getting to know yourself. And it's something that is dear to my heart, because I think over the years, an inner strength is something that has built within myself. I would say that, when it's full on, it's an unstoppable belief in yourself. And it's coming from behaviors, it's coming from your skills, it's coming from your attitude of trying to keep you stable and yet also adaptive. And it comes down to, certainly with the attitude, knowing that you have choices, taking responsibility, and really knowing your purpose in life. Because if you have your North Star to head to and you're really passionate about it, you will show up for yourself, and you will, have an attitude of wanting to grow, wanting to improve. And I've been all about that probably ever since I went into my 30s. I've always had a sense of wanting to improve myself, and it's through that improvement I've had to learn resilience, which I think is an important factor in inner strength. So I won't talk too much. I'll leave it there.
Grant or Nick? Boys, can you hear me?
Grant was looking frozen there, so I'll jump in. So yeah, I think choosing yourself. Rachel just touched on it. I think that's key to moving on this path to self-actualization and living a fulfilling life. For me, it definitely, that's how my life has unfolded. So unfortunately, it took me another decade. It sounds like Rachel was in her 30s. I waited till my 40s. But yeah, just that inner knowing that that I'm doing something for myself and moving down that road and making choices that are in alignment with my own morals and intuition and guidance, and just choosing that over looking good from the outside and having, society look favorably upon what you're doing and what would be normal to the majority of society. That isn't what is going to make the individual happy. And so definitely for me, my journey is definitely evolving as we speak. But that decision was to choose myself was definitely the first steps down this road. So I'm excited to hear what else we are going to discuss today.
Grant, are you okay now?
Looks like he's still dealing with the computer. I can go off of that. One of the other reasons
we kind of hear you. Can you hear Grant when he speaks? Grant? Okay, Amanda, you were saying something?
One of the other reasons why I picked this topic is because so often children, even as early as grade 2, stop seeing the strengths in themselves. And so I think that one of the things that we need to do, because as parents as well, we need to stop that negative self-talk, because it spreads down to our children. And so when children, even like I said, as early as the earliest grade I've ever taught was grade 2, and they even then know, like, I'm not good at reading, so I don't want to read. And it's like, well, stop comparing yourself to other kids. And I find so much, my daughter's 11 now, and there's like that comparison that goes on all the time. And then just like, stop, just give look at your own strengths. You have so many different strengths, but she doesn't see them. And I wonder how we could get kids to see their own strengths, but at the same time, I think that needs to be modeled as an adult. And if you're not modeling it as an adult, then that's going to trickle down to your children, because your children are like little mirrors of you so often. And so I really think it's important to do things like Rachel's business with it, which is that own inner growth of accepting yourself and learning how to be happy in your own body and be happy in your own skin, and to build your self-confidence. I know now in my 40s, I'm talking on the talk show and I've done a lot of things, but at one point in my life, I struggled even to be able to have the confidence to phone the pizza place and order pizza because I just had so much anxiety over different things. And so building that self-confidence was something that I really, really have had to work on. And I've been working on it for the past 10 years or 11 years. And I know as somebody who used to have like paralyzing anxiety that couldn't even phone for pizza, know that negative self-talk can be like paralyzing. And if we can get ourselves out of that, that first step to like get yourself out of that negative self-talk is huge. And when you start doing those things that you're afraid of, then your life will just become so much better when you take those little steps each and every day to build your self-confidence and to stop that negative self-talk. And also, I think that kids need opportunities to celebrate their wins and celebrate themselves. And so often we're always celebrating what other people have done and not like giving ourselves enough credit for what we have done. And I think I know for myself, I'm really bad at celebrating all of that I've accomplished, because I keep looking and I'm like, oh, they've accomplished this or they've accomplished this. And I'm like, no, I need to like realize that I've accomplished so much as a single mom on my own, doing these things, and really just spend some time to be grateful for that. And so often I know for myself, I don't. And then I read a post a little while ago by a friend, who has a yoga clothing company and is working really hard on her stuff. And it was all about, her whole post was about her negative self-talk. And so I actually screenshot it and I sent it to my daughter because I've been seeing so much of that negative self-talk in her. And I was like, you're not the only one. And I think sometimes we also feel that we're the only ones who have this negative self-talk in our heads. And I think we need to be more open and honest about it, so that we can, when we can say our raw vulnerability, then we're able to actually like let it go and uplift others when we can be vulnerable.
Grant, are you back? Go out and come back. Go out and come back. Does anyone wants to take over while I type this to him? I don't know if he can hear me.
Does anybody else see that in children?
Yes, I did see it with my kids as well. My daughter first when she started, but I could see that it was basically something that her friends felt, and she was actually copying her friends. And she'll come home, she'll be like, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this with the subject. She'll be like, I'm not good at this. I'm like, how do you know that? It's mostly if they go to a class, new class, like September, if she doesn't like the teacher, it comes out like, I'm not good at this. So I'm like, are we talking about the subject here, or are we talking about the teacher? And it will come out as like, we are talking about the teacher. I don't like this subject because I don't like my teacher. So I'm like, why do you decide you don't like somebody if they have not done anything to you? And I'll be like, just give somebody a chance, give your teacher a chance, and give the subject a chance. But my daughter, because you don't have to make your children wrong when they have self-talk, like what Amanda was saying. You just have to, just as a parent, you just have to put the message out there. It's up to them. Sometimes they pretend as they don't hear the message, but they actually hear it. Like my daughter, I can see everything that I've been teaching her, though she's been ignoring me. Now she's putting everything into practice. She'll be like, Mommy, you'll be really proud that I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that, and which is good. So children, and my youngest one as well, she does the same thing. She's 7 years old. She come and tell you that I don't like reading. So I'm like, where did we get this? It's like her friends, if they are talking at the playground or in the class, then she's adopting that style. So what I've been saying, I'll just say, wow, you are very, very smart, Kayla. Sometimes you just have to give reading a chance and give this a chance. And you can see that they are copying other children. They are copying each other's attitude, and that those are children for you. And like what Rachel was saying, that she chose herself. Sometimes we neglect ourselves. Sometimes I can look at Grant and look at Nick and look at Amanda and Rachel and be like, wow, you guys are amazing. But at the same time, in not looking at my strength, not celebrating myself, and that is called neglect. I used to look at people as well and celebrate other people. I think for me, it was when I had my daughter when I was 28. And when I had my daughter, that's when I realized basically I couldn't, basically whatever the attitude that I had as myself and the image, I couldn't take it. Basically, I remember basically getting frustrated with the life. I was unhappy with myself, and I was happy before, and then I find myself I'm not happy. And then I just went to my football manager. I was like, I'm quitting football. I'm basically retiring. And he was like, are you having a laugh? And I was like, no, I'm being serious. This is the end today. And he was like, he looked at me, he was like, I'm joking, but I wasn't joking, because I needed some change in my life. Being on the pitch was something that I knew. I didn't know anything else, and being the music, that's all I knew. And I went home. I had a solicitor that was fighting for my immigration case. I had missed the Germany match, and I said to my solicitor, I spoke to her, could you please, because I realized that I was neglecting myself. So I was like, I found out to her what's going on with my case, and she didn't tell me the answer that I wanted to hear. So I rang the immigration myself. I said, this is my name, my date of birth. And the guy was giving me attention. I could see he was listening. He wanted to help me. And I was like, I need my passport. Tell me what I need to do. And he gave me the instructions. I need to go to section this, section this, section this. So I did that. The moment I took over my case, I became my solicitor. The moment I got my papers, within a few weeks, I found out that basically my solicitor was sitting there and my papers already. I missed my match. And my basically indefinite leave, I'd been given it 3 months, and she didn't even check it. So I realized that since that moment, I realized that actually I need to fight for myself, and I need to start taking my life very serious. My strength is not me not believing in myself, because if you don't believe in yourself and you believe that other people can actually fight for you, can do things for you, then your life is just going to be stand still. So since that moment, I just learned to be actually, when I want to do something, you can't tell me that I'm not good enough. You can't tell me that I don't have strength to actually go on. You can't tell me that I can't do, even if I'm scared within me. I just go for it. And I just close my eyes and just go for the things. And sometimes you'll be like, Nomsa, my family will be like, what the heck is going on? Is she going to do it? I just do it. But I'm scared. I just say, God, here's what it is. So I think it's important that we put our lives first and to have a fulfilling life. But it doesn't mean that the journey is easy when you do that. There are so many challenges that you go through, but the fun bit is having those challenges and having to conquer them. Over to you, Rachel.
Yeah, I think what's maybe important for the listener to understand, so that they realize that, you know, then they aren't, you know, you're not odd for having this, you know, negative talk in your mind, because by design we have a negative bias. We will look for the bad news. We could have one piece of bad news and 10 pieces of good news in the day. What are we going to focus on? We're going to focus on the bad thing. And we're going to then maybe, overreact on it. And then we're going to basically actually sit in that emotion. And so it's getting ingrained in our system, in our nervous system. And so the next time something else happens, we get, we're naturally in that negative groove, shall I say. So what we need to do is actually realize that we have control over our mind if we choose to, rather than the mind be controlling us. And, not to resist these negative emotions. There's nothing wrong with them. They're actually there for, to help us. They have purpose. And I think that if you allow yourself as well as your children to actually feel what that negative emotion is, and then say, okay, I'm just going to let this flow. I'm just going to allow it here, and listen to, what is it trying to tell me, and what can I do to feel differently? Because that's what it's trying to show you, in my opinion, from all the work that I've done on myself, is the more that I was pushing away my negative emotions, I actually just made the situation always worse. The moment I started to allow them in, maybe, they never really last longer than 90 seconds, in their peak, and then they start to sort of like filter off. But it was showing me, well, what do you want then if you don't want that? And then you start asking yourself those questions. And so I think, getting back to your point, Amanda, with children, is it's teaching them that, well, if they come home and they say, well, I don't like this, or I can't do that, it's like, well, asking them, well, how does that make you feel? And then getting them to understand what that feeling is. And then like, well, so what do you want to feel? Because it's really just about that. It's nothing, it's not about what you can go out and achieve. That's an old paradigm in my understanding, that, we've been born into a society based on the fact that we're all designed to have a negative bias. We're going to be brought into a society, into a culture, into a world that is set up like that. And so it's not surprising that our children are mirroring back to us exactly how we are behaving as adults and what we're dealing with. But the more conscious that we have become, over the thousands of years, we were getting more and more conscious. We're becoming more and more aware. And the more we can develop that self-awareness is the key to start this inner resource, to get to build that strength within yourself. If you're consciously unconscious, then you're not going to see that. You're not going to be open to it. So, and children, they are just open books. And at that point, they haven't quite, got to the point where they've been pulled through a system that has told them that they need to externally be focused. They need to be something to be approved in society, that they need to get this and get that because then they might be happy, etc., etc. The sooner we can get in and teach them the complete opposite, the healthier that we're going to have a group of human beings that are following behind us. And hopefully we will see a transformation in the world, but probably won't be here to witness like the full manifestation of that, but we're certainly here to help that journey begin, right?
So I'll jump in. So for me, the self-love started me on this journey, and I think it seems to be a common theme for everyone here, is when I started choosing myself. So I'll just tell a story of how my previous career unfolded and then my new one started, and it was 100% coincided with when I started choosing myself. And so it was a diet change, and I started meditating, and just those things all of a sudden just led me to all of a sudden realized that my sleep was really messed up from a lifetime of working shift work, and specifically in a unit I was working in where we worked 4 12-hour night shifts in a row. And I wasn't sleeping anymore in between my night shifts. And so I went and finally chose myself, went to my doctor and got my hours restricted. And so that moved me into a different position within policing, and which was great. I was working from home because it was now pandemic time, Tuesday to Friday, working from a laptop in my living room and not having to deal with the world so much face to face, and which ironically actually led to my breakdown, which happened at work. So yeah, was working from home, everything was going great, and then George Floyd happened here in North America, and that's the individual in Minneapolis that was murdered by a police officer. And then the online world that I was working in just became terrible. It was just dark and nasty place to be. And then all of those traumas that I'd collected through my career, I just always just pushed them down anytime they came up as a memory or a thought, or I was reminded of them. I would just push them back down. Nope, I don't want to deal with that right now. And so that served its purpose for, well, decades. And then finally basically the straw that broke the camel's back for me occurred while I was at work, and I had a breakdown, which I don't call a breakdown. It's actually a breakthrough, because it just forced me, because I needed to be forced to actually deal with the traumas that I'd collected. So that all happened. So when I started choosing a self-love routine as a priority, to when I had my breakthrough at work was just right around 9 months. And then from there, it took me a while, but I was able to actually deal with I ended up being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I went through all the traditional counseling and all that, and none of that was really working for me. I just had this knowing that I needed something more. And for me, it was a shamanic healing journey, which was a lot more holistic. And I had that journey here just in January of this year, and was able to finally process all those traumas that I was just pushing down. And with the help of the medicine that I used and my shaman, who is also a psychologist, was able to just see those events from a totally different perspective. See that they weren't actually even my traumas. I was just a witness to other people's traumas, in my case as a police officer. And so that was huge for me. And then I just had this radical Jesus level compassion for myself and for everyone that was in those situations that I'd been witness to throughout my career. And so those two things, that realization they weren't actually even my traumas, and then that compassion for those people, I processed them, and they don't hold any emotional charge over me anymore. So they remain as memories, of course, but there's not that feeling when they come up to like, oh shit, I just got to push it down. And so there's none of that anymore. It's just been finally processed. And so through that whole time, my life has just been on this crazy different, like I just took a huge Y or fork in the road, however you want to describe it. And it doesn't make sense to the outside world. I just, quit a job that has a pension and the benefits and all of that. And so it doesn't make sense from the outside, but I've never felt this good. And I just have this inner knowing that I'm on the right path. I'm finally choosing myself, and just being vulnerable has been huge for me, and then has led to me finding my strengths, basically, is by showing my weakness, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it's been amazing, the amount of help and support and just love that people have shown me when I just put myself out there and show my vulnerability. And even when I don't know what I'm doing, like launching a fashion brand, like every step that I'm taking, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I'm just honest about it. And people have been amazing, and super, super helpful. And it's really led to me discovering these strengths that I didn't even know I had.
I love it. I don't know what I'm doing. I love it. I love it. Grant, are you ready to talk?
Oh, I'm ready to talk, and I just want to say thank you to Nick. I just want to say thank you, Nick, and I'm sorry you had those ordeals. I'm very sorry, but as always, if I'm looking for a positive, the positive is you coined a new phrase for the show, and that's Jesus like compassion. And,
Compassion,
so
Jesus' level of compassion. I loved that as well.
I know Nick's pouring his heart out, and I'm trying not to laugh.
I couldn't hold it. I couldn't hold it.
That was yeah. As I say, I'm sorry you had that ordeal, but wow, I mean, what a coin of phrase, Jesus like compassion, and that's a great story that you shared there. Yeah, seeing your own strengths, it's so true, isn't it? And as a coach here, one of the things I do, and I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this, is gratitude. You know, the gratitude process, the attitude of gratitude, and I get all of my clients to do the gratitude process in the morning and in the evening. One thing I add to it, because they're always giving gratitude for other things and other people, and I always get them to say thank you to themselves for showing up, being the person they are, putting themselves through the process, and recognizing what they do well. Because until you give yourself recognition, it's very unlikely anyone else is going to be able to do that. So it's or someone once famously said, if somebody else spoke to you the way you speak to yourself, you'd probably slap them. And it's true. We're our own worst enemies the way we speak to ourselves. And of course, it's a finite balance. No one wants to get delusions of grandeur. No one wants to get a big ego. But of course, having self-respect is a very different thing. And it is the cornerstone to everything. All the cliches have been said before, and they're cliches for a reason, because they stick and they are repeatable. And that is, you can't have a relationship with anyone else, a good relationship with anyone else, until you can have a good relationship with yourself. And it is so true. Confidence. What a huge word, confidence. What confidence can't really, there's nothing it can't really fix. I've seen people speaking on a stage. I've seen people following the stagecraft perfectly, like a textbook. But done without the confidence, it's kind of worthless. Making a few mistakes here and there, but done with confidence, you won't even notice the mistakes. And if you do, people will forgive you all day long. And I spoke to one of my coaches once, and we was talking about this subject in great detail. Human behavior is something I'm greatly involved with. And we was talking about the idea of being comfortable, so comfortable with yourself. And we were saying that, this person's the best in the world at this. And we got it down to the point that actually that person's not better. I mean, they're good. They're all up at that higher standard. But among the higher standard, the best one is just the one who's more comfortable. So in other words, they can't outshine the others. They can just out-comfort the others. They can just be so comfortable. So the aim is to be the most comfortable person in a room. And when you're totally comfortable with yourself, I think you become magnetic. And it's a smooth journey. It's not a harsh, stressful journey. It's fun. And you have the attitude of it's only a problem if you want it to be a problem. And it's not a problem if you don't. If you can adapt that, now this is all very easy to say, of course, but if you can adapt that policy, life becomes beautiful. And that's certainly my aim, to start heading towards that way, because when you glimpse it, when you just start to peer behind a door and see what's there, it feels really nice. So I'd recommend it to anyone. Try it on for size, see how you get on with it, because I'm sure you won't want to go back if you learn how to do it. And of course, it's all really about us just giving ourselves permission. And if when I'm coaching people, really deep down, there's a few things people don't know what to do, but generally people know what to do. Kind of like losing weight. you get the general idea. To lose weight is kind of eat less of the wrong foods and exercise more. We kind of get that. But why don't people do it? Right? Because they generally are waiting for someone else or something else to give them the big word beginning with P, and that is permission. Permission. So if we can go around giving our clients permission to be that person that they dared to dream to be, that I think is about 70% of the goal. And that, of course, comes from recognizing your own strengths. Nick, I'm sure you've got a great view on that from the background you come from, and even as a police officer, when you're seeing people, I think even if you're questioning a suspect, there's a lot to be said for body language and people's comfort. You look at people who are agitated, and it can be signs of guilt or anxiety. What was your view on that as a police officer, if I can take you back to that?
Yeah, for sure. So, Grant, if you could just explain exactly your question again.
Yeah, I mean, because I was saying about people being comfortable in the skin when they're really confident, not arrogant, but just confident and comfortable in the skin. It's a very attractive thing, and it's great. And then I remembered, obviously, you've been a police officer, stop people, you question them. And I know when I speak to police officers here, we talk about body language skills, etc. And they look for tells, agitation, subconscious hiding of weapons or stolen equipment. So I wanted to get your take on that. When people are super comfortable in their own skin, when you're questioning them, did it used to tend to make you feel, I don't think this person's hiding anything? Did you get that feeling? Was there anything particular you looked for in that?
Yeah, I could say though that if someone's too confident and it doesn't, you know what I mean? There's that situation where someone's just coming off as arrogant or something like that. It's like, okay, this guy's a little too comfortable in this situation, and then that would raise your suspicion level as well. But yeah, it's super interesting. Like you talked about the referencing, like when people are, so for example, I took a course on, it's the characteristics of armed persons. So we watch tons of video, like surveillance video and whatnot of people walking. And it's all these subconscious things that people do. The way they adjust their belt, or they just, it's a weird thing where, especially if you're carrying a gun, you touch it a lot, even as a police officer, just to make sure it's still there. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense logically, but so you see that same thing in suspects or people that aren't supposed to have a gun, is that they'll just touch their waistband or touch their pocket or anything like that. So it's a whole picture thing. It's their confidence level. It's their body language. It's what are they doing with their hands? What are they doing with their jaw? Are their hands clenched or are they loose? Where are they looking? Like where are their eyes going? It's really a whole picture thing. And then it's funny too, because it's a lot based on your own confidence too, right? As the officer. So your experience and all of that comes into play. And for me, I mean, I came in as a pretty naive young guy and got maybe burned a couple times by people in different situations, being lied to or whatever. And then from there learning, it's like, okay, next time, not going to be so much of a pushover on this situation. So it comes down to your own confidence, and then which builds up your own strengths basically in interviewing and in obtaining confessions or whatever the thing is. Based on the other person's confidence level and yourself, it's a really unique dance that we do just in human interaction.
No, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant insider view, I think, of things like this. And I think people understanding, and I obviously, like yourself, I do a lot of reading of body language and micro movements and things like this. And there's a documentary of someone who was a killer, a murderer, particularly grim and nasty in the UK. Well, I had the opportunity to meet that person. I didn't meet them, but I saw this person because I was, and I'm not going to give the details of the person, but as part of a business group, we got a tour of a prison, an escorted tour of a prison. And we went through various levels of the prison, went in the cell and saw the conditions people were in. People were just about to come out on parole. And then we went to the high security unit. And we walked around a gallery, a gallery. Walked around and there was all these little rooms at the side with people in the room with their lawyers, effectively. And imagine like a library, and you've got these little rooms around the edge, and like little kiosk rooms, and with glass doors, so you can see everything that's happening. And as we walked past, we walked towards the CCTV room, and walked past. And I come from a security background, so yeah, that was kind of interesting to me, the closed circuit television. But when I was profiling and looking at these people, I looked at them. If you saw them on the street, you would feel something was wrong. You absolutely would. Every single one of them. And then we looked down over the balcony into the floor below. And there were again a series of tables with one person at one end with a different colour bib and another person. One was probably a lawyer, and the other one was a criminal, an inmate. And when they were there, we looked at them, I looked at them, and suddenly people were like cursing under their breath. The people I was with cursing under their breath. And I'm, what? Monster. What's going on? I didn't get what was going on. And they said the person's first name. I'm like, I don't get it. What are you talking about? And then they said the full name. I said, what about him? I said, well, he's there. I said, he's down there. And I looked again, swear to God, the most comfortable person in the room, the one who looked Mr. Normal, the one you'd sit next to on a bus or a train and think nothing of, was him. The others looked, instantly you're like, wow, hang on, there's something wrong with this person. That one, not at all. Completely comfortable in his skin. Completely. And I think the police had alluded to the fact that that's how he got away with it so long, because it was super helpful to the police. You get the one sort of narcissistic view. They get off on sort of taunting the police and say, hey, how can I help? I'll go on TV and all this kind of, and that person was the murderer. And I saw him myself, and the chilling thing was just how comfortable it was. So my point is, it's not to talk about people like that, but just being comfortable in your own skin. I mean, that's where someone's used it for bad purposes. But you think if you're using it in your normal day life to be comfortable, if you're using it in your job, your career, or your relationships for legitimate ethical reasons, just how powerful that tool is. And that's the reason that I raised that point. That person got away with it for so long because of that. They were looking elsewhere, and just tiny little micro expressions in the end that made people think, hang on, there was something slightly wrong with that. But it took a lot of experts to look for quite some time to see the tells. So again, don't be a criminal, but if you can start to get comfortable with your ethical things that you're doing in life, your real behavior, it can really open doors for you very, very quickly. And I think it's a great lesson to learn. Amanda, what you got any thoughts around that? You see this behavior as a teacher? As a teacher, it matters an awful lot about being comfortable around the children stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different things about, like you can just tell by kids' body language if they're feeling comfortable that day, even if they're coming to the school and they're feeling down, or they've had a fight with their brother or a fight with their parents, or if they come in like, yes, I had the best morning. It's so much in our body language. I had jotted down though that Jesus level, Jesus like compassion for self. And the topic today was having compassion for self. So often we have this Jesus level compassion for others, and we can have empathy for others, but we don't always do that same level of compassion for ourselves. So my question was, how often do you give yourself the same level of kindness, empathy, and compassion that you give to other people? And if you're not giving yourself that same level of kindness, empathy, and compassion, then maybe take a step back and think about how you can give yourself that level of kindness, empathy, and compassion. And when you can, then you'll be able to be unapologetically yourself and just stand in your true power. And I think that when we get that confidence and we can let go of the things that are holding us back, then we can just up our level of consciousness and up our level of who we are, and then we can empower others as well. Because as an empath, I like take in so much of what other people are feeling, and it's hard for me to be like, no, that's their stuff, this is my stuff. And people with huge levels of empathy sometimes can't separate that. And Nick was talking about that in the beginning, how his psychologist and shaman was able to give him that ability to see it from that was their stuff, and I was a witness to it, rather than taking that in and holding it as his own stuff too. And so often we hold on to other people's stuff that really isn't ours to hold on to. And I think that's something that when we become conscious of it, it's easier to let it go. So that's what I wanted to comment on. What about you, Rachel?
I just want to swing back around to what Grant said about being comfortable. I totally agree with what you said, and I want to do an add-on in the sense that I look at everything that there's always a plus and a min to everything, because we live in a dualistic world. And so for being comfortable in your own skin is a good place to be, as long as it's in balance. The moment it starts to get too comfortable, we can become too complacent, we can start to become stagnant, and then actually we will lose our compassion and our empathy, because now we're starting to just think that we know it all. We're great as we are. And then you see that maybe there's someone, like if you put it in somebody who's a speaker in the world, and they're great, they're comfortable in their skin and they're at the top of their game. And then you've got these newbies who are coming up behind, who keep pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. They're getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And at some point they will overtake. They will actually, whereas the speaker who was in his prime is now, or she is thinking, hey, wait a minute, I don't seem to be getting the same traction with the audience as what this newbie in town is getting. Why? Because they keep pushing themselves out of their comfort zone, and that person has got too comfortable. So, when we are in a place of growing, and we want to keep improving ourselves, it's really important to not forget that, yes, it's great to get to that place where you're feeling comfortable, and it has its place, you can own it. But when you start to maybe realize that, okay, well, how long have I now been comfortable, and is it time to push again outside that comfort zone? Because then you're building that inner strength to bring it back around to inner strength. You're being able to deep down dig into those resources. And for me, my resources that I just, that on my journey have been curiosity, have been compassion, have been commitment, and have been championing myself, so being my best friend. And the reason for those four, with curiosity, it's been about raising my awareness. If I've been curious, then I'm eager to learn something about myself. The compassion is that when it goes wrong, or I've failed at that, so to say. I don't believe that failure is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually a place again to learn and to grow and to know what you don't want, or it doesn't work that way, so I need to try something else. The commitment is really being intentional with what I want to do and where I want to be and where I want to go and who I want to interact with, and the things I do like and the things that I don't like. I'm intentional with it. And the champion side of it, being my best friend, is to be maintaining my well-being whilst I'm on this journey, and taking out the self-care practices and things like that. If I'm going to be an enemy to myself, I'm not going to focus on those things. So I went from a self-hate relationship into one of self-love and self-respect and self-acceptance. And I know that you can go from one place to another. It's just, it does boil down to taking that, all those resources that you start to learn about yourself and the things that work for you, and apply them, because knowledge is great, but if you don't actually do something with it, it's just a waste. It's a waste of time. So you've got to actually embody it and actually become whatever it is that you envision yourself being in your so-called future and your vision. So, Nomsa.
I love it when Rachel, when you talk about when we get too confident, we get to a stage where we know it all. For me, basically, when I meet people, I normally step back. I become a follower. Unless you ask me what I do, then I like to evaluate people first. And then once I know that, basically I let someone tell me who they are, and then I'll tell you who I am. But I normally meet people and I become a follower. And then when I basically bring myself out and somebody will be like, whoa, I'm like, you've never asked. So you will know about me if you ever asked, but you've never asked. Because some people, they love to talk about themselves a lot. So I'm always like, I step back, and I like it when you talk about letting go of the things that are holding us back. I like to be a leader, and there are times where I like to learn from other people. Like Rachel, you talk about, you say like newbies, they're like, I'm like a newbie. For me, everything that I'm doing, I'm like a newbie. I always like check what other people, like what other matchmakers are doing. And I always check what other people are doing. There's a girl, actually, she was one of my clients, and then she went to Tony Robbins, and then she did a training. Now she's a relationship coach. So I always follow her and go and listen to her talks. And one day she was like, why are you listening to me? And I was like, I'm listening to you because you are a coach. And she was like, but you've been in the industry for a long time. I said, no, that's not in the real world. That's not how it works. In the real world, you don't look at yourself that way. We are basically, for me, I'm learning each and every single day. Because just because I've been in the industry for a long time, it does not make me know it all. So I was like, I'm coming to you to watch it because I'm learning from you and you are learning from me. So she couldn't understand why I was basically turning up to her workshop when she was doing live on Facebook, free live on Facebook. But I was supporting her at the same time and being proud of who she has become as a person. And at the same time, I was learning, and I'll ask questions and she got confused. So I was like, you don't need to be confused. I'm basically, I don't see myself as somebody who has been, who is know-it-all, because we learn each and every day. Basically, we learn from other people. And when you get comfortable, that's when people, basically the newbies, they take over, like what Rachel was saying. So you don't need to get comfortable. I never get comfortable. I'm basically, if I see any challenge that is going on Facebook, I go and look at somebody's website. If they are good, I was snooping at your website, Rachel, yesterday. So I go and look at their website. If I like what I see, the message on the website, and I look at their work, if I like what I see, I just go to the challenge. Basically, I just go in and register myself. I never see me as somebody who is know-it-all, because I don't want to be comfortable. You miss out if you say, I know this, I know this. I've seen it like with Amanda. Since you went to Bob Proctor's training, since you've decided to take the course, I've seen that like your attitude is changing as well. So which I'm really, really impressed about it. So I think it is nice to actually, like what Nick was saying, that he basically just left his job that he has ever known and took a completely different path. And does he know what he's doing? He says he doesn't know. That's how everyone starts. I didn't know anything about matchmaking. All I knew was psychology. Anything else, I didn't know anything about it, Nick. All I did was to follow people that have been in the business for a long time. And some people, then they don't give you information. and you just have to go along. You find somebody, like if you are in the fashion industry, like the event that I went to the other day. I'm not sure, I'm gonna check if they're doing it in Canada. It's basically all fashion industry. So you just have to make sure when you're on your like your social media, make sure they are set up properly. You're present, you're present on social media. Make sure it's set up properly, because that's where people find you. So I basically started being headhunted a year later. The first year, I used to get messages. People would send me messages that like, your website looks crap, and I'll be like, thank you very much. And somebody will send me a message on Instagram about my post, make a comment about my Instagram post, Facebook post. Why are you posting different posts? You should be doing this. But then I realized they're putting me down because they want me to hire them. So what I did was to go and find the those virtual assistants, and I was like, I look at what they do designing these social media. I said, teach me what you know, and then they'll teach me, give me feedback. Even if I didn't want to run Instagram, I would just say, I'll pay them basically for their time and say, tell me about how do I run Instagram? How do I post on Instagram? So they'll be listening. They'll sit down with me and just give me information that I need, so that I have everything that I need. Even now, if I don't understand something, I don't know it all, I just ask. Yeah? And you guys are here. I'm very lucky. I just ask questions like, can you help me with this? And it's so nice when you basically evaluate your strength and your weaknesses. I know my strength and I know my weaknesses. And the other day, just my basically when Gavin was coming in April, when he said to me, I need to work. So he was like, I'm working with these guys and this. And Martin was like, does this guy know you're crazy? You have to explain that you're crazy first. So I was like, what do you mean I'm crazy? And he was like, when we go to your events, we want to see people like normal, but your events go crazy. I was like, oh, that part. So it's fine. But I watch people that are doing events, and then like showing people the real thing, and then I go and implement and do something similar that I feel that is going to help somebody. So I think it's very, very important, like what Nick was saying, that you go to that Jesus level compassion, and then you have compassion with yourself, and loving yourself is more important, and putting your life first, and choosing, like Rachel was saying, she made a choice to choose herself, which is something that I did as well. That I knew that I cannot go on like that, like this, the way things were. When you're unhappy, you know about it. You don't need anyone explaining to you. And since then, I don't look back. I keep learning each and every single day. Over to you guys. I think it's 2:00. Amanda, I know you're going. Do you guys want to add something, or do you just want to give the words of encouragement? Let's go one round.
I can just give my words of encouragement. I think if you have some struggles with being compassionate for yourself, the first step is to become conscious of it. And when you become conscious of it, that's when you can do something about it. And so every time you catch yourself in that negative self-talk cycle, you just need to catch yourself and then take a step back, and then be like, if I was helping somebody else through this, how would I show them kindness, compassion, and empathy? And I'm sure if you had a friend going through what you're going through, there would be a different way that you would treat them than treat yourself, because we tend to have more compassion and empathy for other people than we do for ourselves. And so when you become conscious of that, take a step back and do the advice that you would give yourself in that or your friend in that situation, but do it for yourself. And I think that's like the very beginning steps to empowering your life and becoming unapologetically yourself.
Rachel?
I would say slow down. Slow down, because everybody is very busy. And when we slow down, we get an opportunity to observe ourselves better. And I think also, like I said, that life has got its pluses and its minuses, because we live in duality. And I said that about the negative bias, being that that's where we tend to put all our focus, is when you slow down, focus on what was good and stay with that feeling and actually feel it in your body, and ask yourself, what was rewarding about that experience? What was meaningful about that experience? What did I find joy from that experience? Because the more that you sit and slow down and take focus and attention onto that, you're also helping your nervous system to also kind of like recalibrate, and you're bringing more of a balance back into your life. So that would be that. And I would end with a thing from Tony Robbins, which is the secret of success is learning how to use pain and pleasure instead of having pain and pleasure use you. If you do that, you're in control of your life. And if you don't, then life will control you. Nick.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to touch on, I guess, a couple of things you guys did already, but is when you do catch yourself in that negative self-talk loop, and bring yourself out of it, I think it's important to celebrate those small wins, even if you are in a funk for, let's say, a whole day, but you finally catch yourself maybe at the end of that day, is celebrate that. Well, at least I caught myself. I'm here. I did it. And then the next time that it happens, it will generally be a shorter time period. And so just don't forget to celebrate those wins, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Absolutely. And then for me, it's and I can't remember who it was that said it, but is getting to that point where you're comfortable being uncomfortable. I love that, because that's where growth happens for sure, is when you're pushing yourself and moving beyond those previous markers that you've set for yourself. And then the one last thing is just for me is, at the end of the day, what would you rather do? Would you rather be in fear and have that stop you, or have regrets? And for me, I would way rather push through that fear than to have regrets that I didn't push myself, that I didn't go for it, that I didn't choose myself. And that for me is the key. Grant?
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, for me, I mean, it is, we've said it already today, and it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. It's the expression which I love. And I'm always saying to people, people say, oh, I'm not comfortable doing that. And I tend to say, that's okay, but just do it anyway. It's okay to be uncomfortable, but doing it's the important thing. And you'll be surprised how you'll stretch yourself. Now, here's the thing. We've spoken a lot about seeing your own strengths. So a lot of people have struggles doing that. I said earlier about when you had the gratitude process, put a little thing about yourself. Give gratitude to yourself. Lean over, pat yourself on the back. Well done for that. That was good. You did well. You expanded. You got better at something. One thing I do with people, my clients, I get them comfortable with being uncomfortable with the idea of accepting compliments. Because a lot of people, they negate compliments. They'll say, hey, Amanda, I love that dress, and you'll say, oh, yeah, it's just old. It's an old dress. I'll say, yeah, no, but I really like that shirt you're wearing or something. And we try to pass it on to someone else rather than just doing the one thing. And this is what I ask people to do. Sometimes I say, your task for this week is to ask 3 people that you trust. 3 people you will trust. Face to face. Don't wimp out. Don't do it by text. Face to face or online. Just ask them, can you tell me what are my 3 best qualities? And whatever they tell you, you just say, thank you. and get used to taking the compliment. So if you can't see the strengths in yourself, let the people you trust tell you what they are and get used to accepting them. And that way you can start to move the needle and start to see the strengths in yourself and go from where you are now to where you want to be. That's what I wanted to share. Over to you, Nomsa.
Thank you so much, Grant, Rachel, Nick, and Amanda. That was really, really, really useful information for our audience. So hopefully they will start celebrating themselves. Hopefully they will start taking compliment because they deserve them, those compliment, instead of trying to ignore them or trying to pass them on. And Amanda, hopefully if there's a parent that is been listening to your talk, hopefully they will help their children become who they want to become, because it's very, very important to help our children from a very young age. And Rachel, I hope that somebody will choose themselves. They'll watch your talk and decide to choose themselves. Nick, I feel sorry for the companies if they've got good workers and those who really, really love their employees. And when they watch your talk, I hope they don't lose somebody, because it is very, very important sometimes to take a different path, just to go for the dreams, and just to go for the things and different things in life. If we change, change is good for us. So if someone is watching, they will be able to say, hey, I want to change. If Nick is able to walk away from a good, valuable job that gives him everything, I can too, and become my own boss. So thank you so much. And for those who are watching, we are here at Ngozi Talk Shows live 1 p.m. UK time. And please, if you want to follow our coaches on social media and get in touch with them, find out what basically how they can help you find your own voice and lead from within. And Ngozi Talk Shows family, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and live with grace, everyone, and God bless.